Day 3 and still no president-elect, but that could very well change today. Meanwhile, the balance of power in the Senate hangs on Georgia. And love, hate, 8 to end a stressful week. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, November 6th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Good morning, Carlo.
Good morning, Jill. Remember the 6th of November. Isn't that a saying from something? Hold on, I'm going to Google it. But carry on.
I've never heard it. It seems like a Carloism, but go ahead.
Oh no, it's the 5th of November. Sorry. Okay, carry on.
I know do you remember the 21st night of September? That's
No,
the
what's
other
that
song.
one?
Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway.
Shall we move on? The U.S. is entering its third full day without results in the presidential election, although Joe Biden is on the brink of victory. Overnight, Biden overtook President Trump in Georgia, if you could believe it, where the vote is almost complete. In Pennsylvania, Biden is behind by just 20,000 votes, with about 175,000 mail-in ballots still uncounted, 60,000 or so from Democratic-leaning Philadelphia. Now, if Pennsylvania's called for Biden today, that's it. That's the ball game, even without Arizona, where Trump has eaten into Biden's small lead. The AP and Fox continue to stay with their call of Arizona for Biden. And by the way, Nevada, where the vote count has been slow, also too close to call. Last night, President Trump appeared in public for the first time in 2 days, delivering a statement that was filled with so many falsehoods about the election process that most of the networks actually just pulled the plug on carrying him live.
I enjoyed all the memes about Nevada taking its sweet time with the count. Somebody said that Nevada's like that coworker who shows up late to a meeting with a giant iced coffee. I thought that was pretty clever. Jill, what the president did last night. I mean, I wasn't really surprised, but it's still so surreal to actually watch that. I mean, it's like watching somebody toss a match into a tinderbox and then just walk away. I mean, we are on a nice edge on this country, and for him to just come out and basically say that the whole thing is a sham. The handful of Trump apologists, not even Trump supporters. I don't think there's a lot of Trump. I don't know, but we have a handful of guys who, and it's all guys who often write in specifically to me to say something about me being unfair to the president, saying that he's just like every other politician. If you guys are listening today, seriously, write in. How do you defend what happened last night? How do you defend that? What is possibly the defense of a president who appears to be losing this election to, just sort of like set the whole process on fire on his way out the door? I just don't get it. But Jill, even before President Trump came out last night, Joe Biden has been going out these last couple of days doing these little press conferences himself, not really saying much, just sort of telling people to be patient, saying he thinks that they're going to win, but he wants everyone to be calm. He's been setting the tone, I think, and I think it's sort of the opposite of President Trump, kind of like rage tweeting about stopping the votes from being counted. It just makes Joe Biden look like a steady hand, and it's very smart politics.
On those memes from Nevada, I saw a funny tweet. Nevada taking the "what happens in Nevada stays in Nevada" a little too seriously. Of course, a play on the Vegas tagline.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the various legal efforts from the Trump campaign to stop the ballots from being counted do not appear to be working. In 2 cases, lawyers for the Trump campaign submitted hand-drawn maps to ballot counting rooms to show what they said was evidence of something, which the judges basically said, kind of like laughed at it. Several other suits were also dismissed out of hand. So I actually saw a really clear example of where this idea of fraud, how it could start and why, there's and get out of hand. So there was a video that was circulating in the Detroit area, and it looked like this, like in the dark of night, somebody wheeling out with a wagon full of ballots. Okay. It was right outside of one of the places where they're counting the ballots, and it just looked shady. a reporter from WXYZ, which is a station out in Detroit, did a report the next morning, which said, we want to set the record straight. There's this video that's circulating of this wagon in the dark of night, leaving with ballots, allegedly. And she said that was one of our photographers from our station loading his camera into
Oh,
our
wow.
news
Yeah.
van. So that wasn't like a rogue van,
Right.
from one of the parties taking ballots. That was actually our news van. She's like, this is the wagon. This is what we carry. This is our equipment. But one of these videos that someone just took probably on a phone, all of a sudden gets spread around the internet, and someone
Yep.
sees it and says, "Oh, they're removing boxes of ballots
Yeah.
out of a poll place in Detroit." So that's how it happens.
There was another video I saw that I admit I was like, this looks really shady. It was a video of a woman like stuffing ballots or what appeared to be like stuffing ballots in her pocket. I was like, ooh, that doesn't look good. And then I realized there's the flag of the Russian Federation behind her. Like it wasn't even in this country. And that was being spread around as misinformation. I think the president's son himself even tweeted it. So yeah, I mean, we're just so primed for misinformation with social media. It's really scary. But back to these lawsuits, still, you can tell they're kind of BS because they're suing to stop the count where they're ahead, and they're demanding that the count continue in states like Arizona where they're behind but making up ground. There's no legal argument to stop votes from being counted. These lawsuits, by the way, we haven't actually seen them. We've just heard heard from the president and people on his campaign staff that are saying that there's all this fraud. Where's the evidence? There's literally been zero actual evidence of voter fraud that has been presented, at least yet. It's a PR campaign, right? And I think that there's a very important point to make that I was heartened by yesterday. Establishment Republicans are not taking the bait, and nor is Fox News, or at least the news division of Fox News. And that's very good for democracy. That means I suspect that this sort of legal fight is going to burn itself out over the next couple days, maybe weeks. And I don't think these lawsuits are actually meant to go anywhere. I think that they're meant to sort of signal to the president's base that the election was stolen, so that just to sort of go out on that sort of grievance. But it's obviously it's bad that a big chunk of the electorate is going to think that the election was stolen. But it's not going to be like half the country. Most people are capable of seeing with their own eyes and graciously accepting the results, just as many did in 2016. That doesn't mean there won't be plenty of noise, and again, just like there was on the other side in 2016. But I feel a little bit heartened this morning that my fears that this is going to become a super contested situation are not playing out, even though they're trying to make it so.
Two quick things. If Georgia does go for Biden, it would be the first time since Bill Clinton in '92 that Georgia has gone Democrat for president. So just
amazing,
incredible. Also in Arizona, if the results stand, Mark Kelly, a Democrat, he won in the Senate. Or at least he's ahead, and the president at this point's behind. So if that stands, Meghan McCain, John McCain's John McCain's daughter, she has been arguing, as have many others, that, perhaps the president shouldn't have been hating on John McCain for however many years that he's been doing
since
it.
5 years. Yeah, since he started. It was one of the first things.
John McCain is a favorite son of Arizona. Yeah. And a very well-liked Republican. He's somebody who always, crossed the aisle and worked with Democrats. So, perhaps that's coming right. A little. Yeah, I mean, perhaps that's kind of coming back to bite him a bit. So the balance of power in the Senate is very likely to hinge on what happens in Georgia's 2 Senate races. The Peach State has a law that if no candidate gets the majority of votes, a runoff is automatically triggered. So that's exactly what's happening in both the state's Senate races. Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler headed in a runoff for one of the seats. And then Democrat Jon Ossoff locked in a close race with Republican Senator Mike Perdue for the second. With nearly all of the Georgia vote in, Perdue has a 49.8% of the vote to Democrat Jon Ossoff's 47.8%.
It is looking like it's wow. I mean, the political nerds are going to go crazy if this actually goes down to two runoffs. Pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, just a little gut check on the Senate. Democrats flipped 2 seats, but they lost one, so there's a net gain of 1 seat. So if the map stays where it is, Democrats need 3 seats to control the Senate. So if you assume a Joe Biden win, remember the vice president, who would be Kamala Harris, she cast the deciding vote in a tie, 50-50 tie. So they really need 2 seats. Thus why these 2 races in Georgia become so critical. I think it's pretty unlikely that Democrats would win both of those runoffs, but who's to say? And one thing that is for sure, Jill, it is a good time to have a broadcast license in the state of Georgia. There are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars poured into that state over these next 2 months. I think those runoffs would be set for the week after the new year.
Yeah, it's probably gonna it's probably gonna save
the local news, right?
States. So whoever wins the election is going to be facing the prospect of being inaugurated in the middle of a dark winter in this country. Cases of coronavirus and hospitalizations are setting records pretty much everywhere. And then that lagging indicator, deaths, up 15% in just the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're looking at upwards of 1,200 a day now. We're headed towards the 2,000 a day mark from the spring. Let's hope that we don't get there, but it's not looking good. Interesting story in the Associated Press this morning. 93% of the counties with the highest number of new cases per capita went for President Trump. These are mostly rural counties where mask wearing and social distancing not been anywhere close to universal. Again, maybe in a Biden presidency, the politicalization, what is that word? Politicization? I don't know. Anyway,
you've gotten my head spinning with it. Just, we get it.
You know what I mean. Anyway, in a Biden presidency, that would be one of the things that, I don't know if this would happen, but the hope would be that would be one of the things that stops, and we can try and act, a little bit more as one with this stuff.
It's funny. I was looking at my Instagram feed, which was filled with obviously photos of. I follow a lot of reporters just because I've been in the biz for a while, and I have friends kind of all over the country. And one of my friends is a reporter out in Minnesota, and she was posting pictures of election night in that state. I almost thought it was like a throwback to 4 years ago, because she was at a headquarters where nobody was wearing a mask. I don't even know if it was a Republican. I don't know if it was a Democrat. The point was just, I think in New York, we're so used to every single person wearing a mask. You can't leave the house without it. You can't go into a store without it. And I was looking at these photos, and they were kind of at headquarters waiting for results to come in, which is basically what happens on election nights in most years. And nobody was wearing masks, and everyone was sitting at tables and counting. But it was just like, I felt like I was watching
a lot
like
of fatigue.
A bizarro thing.
I gotta say, Joe, last night I had to go move my car, and I forgot to bring my mask, which I often do, and I always just go back and get it. But because I literally only had to go down the stairs of my building and like 2 blocks to where my car was outside, I was like, you know what, I'll be fine. And honestly, those 2 blocks, I felt like when I passed people on the street, like I felt like a total outcast, because I was one of these people that didn't have a mask on. I was like, oh my God, these people are going to think that, I'm just a bad person.
An anti-masker.
Yeah, exactly. So I made it though.
I'm glad you survived your 2-block sprint. Okay, on to some economic news. The U.S. economy is expected to show that it added just 530,000 jobs in October. We're getting the September jobs report this morning. The October jobs report this morning. A drop. So it would be a drop from the 660,000 payrolls that were added in September, as the pace of hiring has slowed down again. A lot of analysts, though, do think that the economy is stalling out ahead of the holiday shopping season. But we do know a lot of retailers are going to be hiring a lot of extra workers, as they usually do this time of year, to get ready for the holiday rush. But the question is, with less in-person shopping. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the big retailers juice their hiring around now. So we'll have to see, if it's like it usually is. But again, I mean, the holiday season, it's not just about retail, right? This is when travel, people take trips, vacations, visit their families, the travel industry, obviously a huge time for them, the hospitality industry. I mean, think about all the restaurants that cater like, your holiday party, the bars and stuff like that. None of that's going to happen this year. So it's going to be tough. We're not in a good place.
On another note, for such a busy hurricane season, Florida has been exceptionally lucky this year. The state has not seen a single landfall from a named storm in 2020. That luck could be about to run out. Ada, currently a tropical depression over Central America, on the move again. The system expected to reconstitute over the Caribbean this week, and it has Florida and the Keys in its sights for a possible landfall early to mid next week. I don't believe it's forecast to be, though, an incredibly strong hurricane.
Right.
Doesn't
I
mean
think
it
it would
can't
be.
do damage.
Yeah, the question is, does it get to tropical storm named status? But this storm, by the way, I know that it's been lost because there's just been so much obviously big news in the states this week. But it has left dozens of people dead in Central America this week. Catastrophic flooding, landslides in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, which obviously are poor countries that don't have particularly good infrastructure to deal with this. So just keep those folks in your thoughts, of course.
All right. And Carlo and I have some final thoughts on the week, if you'll bear with us. Here's mine. Here's my takeaway from this election. Even if Biden were to win, which is looking more likely, the polls were way wrong, right? This was not a landslide. Even if the Electoral College looks like a landslide, it was not a landslide. And why were the polls wrong? Again, it's something we've talked about. One of the big ones, I think, is that a lot of Trump voters are just simply not comfortable admitting it, telling a stranger or anyone for that matter that they're voting for him. Bethany Mandel in the forward, she wrote, "Of course, Trump's voters lie to pollsters. You call us all racists." So I got into this little debate on Instagram, which alone,
Oh,
even
what are you
saying
what are
that
you doing?
sentence
Come on.
has me doubting my sanity. It's like, do I even admit this? And as I was
Oh,
doing it,
God.
I'm like, what am I doing? I
It's
just
all right. You
didn't think it was
relapsed.
going to
That's okay.
I didn't think it was going to get contentious, but here goes. So, a casual friend of mine reposted from somebody else something along the lines of, the fact that this is so close in terms of the election in the wake of one of the president's racist, anti-blackness, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, and all of the other phobias is so telling. Basically, kind of, saying half of this country is racist, xenophobic, etc. So I wrote back thinking this would not be like a controversial thing. I just said, I wouldn't be so disheartened. I don't think that we're as divided as the numbers show. I think that there's a lot of people who vote for Trump who don't like him personally and actually think he's probably a horrible person, but they're Republicans and they agree with more of his actual policies than that of Joe Biden, particularly when it comes to taxes and the economy. So her response was, totally open to hearing all sides, but in my opinion, supporting a racist so you can reap the financial benefits is literally the core of racism in this country. Fair point. So I just wrote something back along the lines of, I hear you. I just don't think it's so black and white. She has now gone radio silent. I'm sure she's going to unfollow me or whatever. So clearly not open to hearing all sides, or maybe in fairness, just didn't feel like going back and forth again, because it's
Right.
insane to do it on Instagram. So I'm not saying I agree with voting for Trump, right? And I want to make that clear.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, for like fear of backlash myself. But I do know a handful of people who did vote for Trump, and I've spent a lot of time talking to them about it. And maybe they felt comfortable talking to me about it because I'm not judging them. Like I actually was having real conversations, asking, why in the face of his COVID response, of not condemning white supremacists, and just some of the overall inexcusable behavior, why are you still voting for him? And mostly it comes down to his policies on things like taxes and the economy. They don't want to vote Democratic. They're Republicans, and they don't. One of the other things I kept hearing is, we don't want to defund the police. They think that there needs to be a change and better training, but They want a police department. So, I would ask about some specifics. So, how can you vote for someone who did X, Y, and Z? And you know what? A lot of these voters aren't paying attention to the tweets. Most aren't
Well,
even on
that's a good
Twitter.
point. Yeah. Right.
Like this background noise that we in the media focus so much on is not important to them. Like they're voting with their pocketbooks. And maybe you could call them uneducated voters, right? But there are uneducated voters on both sides. So that is not a fair argument.
Sure.
What is my point? I just think we all need to get off our high horses. And I mean, we all collectively, and start listening to the other side. Both sides do it, right? And I just don't think that the majority of Americans are as divided as it seems. I just think Trump is this polarizing figure, but I do think most Americans are pretty rational and somewhere in the middle. And case in point, in Mississippi, which went overwhelmingly for President Trump, it also went overwhelmingly to change the flag and get rid of the Confederacy emblems and replace
Yeah.
it with a Magnolia flag. The vote was by 70%. That is like more than any candidate could ever dream of
Sure.
getting in terms of a majority. That is beyond a mandate. So my point is, I just think Democrats have got to stop calling Trump supporters racist. Maybe some are. Republicans have got to stop calling Democrats socialists that are going to ruin this country. Maybe some are socialists, but you don't change people's minds by insulting them. You try listening. And I'm going to quote Mitch Albom, who's my favorite, who says, we have more than taken sides in America. We have tunneled moats. In the name of our way, we have demeaned, denigrated, destroyed. We've lost friends, alienated families, split our communities by lawn signs. We have hurt one another emotionally and even sometimes physically. Yet far from looking at our guilty hands in regret, we continue to make fists and shake them across the great divide. Is this who we want to be?
Look, I think, yeah, I mean, well said. No group is a monolith. To me, it's easy for me to think, like, why would Latinos in South Texas vote for Trump in the numbers that they did? Like, where I come from, that seems insane. But what the hell do I know, right? I'm just a guy who has the experience of the world. That's my experience. It's not their experience. It's not your experience. I always go back to what Pope Francis said, right? Like, who am I to judge? And I think that that's sort of part of what your point is. People have conflicting views that don't always make sense, not even to them. I mean, I know I don't, right? I mean, especially in a diverse country, that's sort of the name of the game, and it's good in a lot of ways. But thank you for that, Jill. I think that my hope is sort of, my thoughts are a little more pragmatic just on the case of what a Biden presidency could look like. My hope is that this is the beginning, assuming that he wins, of a new day in this country. And I'm not saying I think that Joe Biden is going to be some transformational president or figure in American history, but he might be just what we need right now. One thing that he has done a very good job of during the campaign is he hasn't taken the bait on any of the culture war or wedge issue crap, right? Either from the president or from the left, or from sort of like the Twitter left. That's very good. I think that's all of that stuff is a distraction right now, given the problems that we have. So look, we as a country have to tone it down. We have to take our foot off the gas, turn down the heat a little bit. If we can get to a place where this vaccine is deployed, there's a peaceful transfer of power, Biden comes in, he gets a stimulus done somehow with McConnell. These are obviously big ifs, but he gets some help to the people and the businesses that need it, and then he presides over the successful rollout of the vaccine. Maybe spring 2021, we start to feel in a better place as a country. That's my hope. That's it's not much to ask for, but I think that we could get there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope Biden come off. I'm not trying to defend Trump supporters. I'm not trying to defend anybody.
No, I get your point. Yeah.
Chill out. I mean, my God, it's not as bad as I think the media makes it seem. It's not as bad as it seems on Instagram. I think let's chill. Okay, let's do a little bit of love on this wild week. Carlo, kick it off.
Okay, Jill. One thing we love, I think I mentioned this on Tuesday morning, back when I was having like my crying fit my emotional meltdown before the election. One thing we love, just the election night theme music on the major networks. Gets me so pumped up. NBC. I wanted to play it, but I think we'd get sued if we did. But just Google the NBC News election night theme music. The trumpets, the big brass. I just love it. I'll listen to that even when it's not election night, just to pump myself up.
One thing that we hate, by the way, that is, even my husband was like, Carlo, I'm like, are you serious
Oh,
that you're playing
on,
election
whatever.
night music? And he's like, I am
Whatever.
no longer going to feel bad about being such a crazy Ohio State fan and like watching their hype videos. And he's like, if,
Yeah, we
you
all
know,
have our picadillos,
we have
right?
our things. Okay, one thing that we hate, literally every other part of the election night experience, from the misleading exit polls to the partisan hot takes, and just this entire antiquated concept of the Electoral College.
Yeah, I mean, the Electoral College, Republicans will have lost the popular vote. Will have won the popular vote one time in the last 8 elections. The Electoral College has far outlived its usefulness. We don't have to get into a big debate about this now, but I mean, again, it's not just Democrats that should want to be done with the Electoral College. Republicans should too, right? Democrats are going to flip Texas blue one of these days. So it's really in the Republicans' own interest to scrap the Electoral College and try to build a majority coalition. I mean, think about I looked at these numbers last night. 840,000 people in Alabama voted for Joe Biden, right? Those votes were meaningless. That's more people than voted for Biden in Vermont, Delaware, and D.C. combined, right? The flip side, 4 million Californians voted for Donald Trump. That's a million more than voted for him in Ohio. Those votes were completely meaningless. It's just, it's just, it seems so obvious at this point in America that we should have politicians that try and actually campaign for the entire country. Like, wouldn't it be great to have, presidents or presidential candidates coming to New York and talk? Like, when was the last time you saw a rally for a presidential candidate in New York City, right? For president, at least. Okay. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse. And one thing we ate, a bowl of Frosted Flakes, and I bought Frosted. One of the big things this year, Jill, is I've gotten on a really bad sugary cereal habit that I have got to kick. These cereals, I don't understand how they're street legal. I mean, it's like doing drugs. I mean, the amount of sugar, it's delicious, but I cannot believe that children eat this stuff. It's whew.
And somehow parents are convinced it's actually healthy.
It's amazing.
We've just this is where we are. Okay, we're going to leave it there. I'd love to hear from everybody. Write in. What do you think? Are we wrong? Are we right? Keep us, we want to hear from you. Okay, that's what you need to know for Friday, November 6th.
Have a good weekend, guys.